Sometimes the worst moments of our lives are just the universe preparing us for who we're meant to become. In the unforgiving heartland, where fortunes are built on grit and destroyed by greed, a new legend is about to be told. The cabin of the Gulfstream G650 felt less like a vessel of power and more like a gilded cage, hurtling Victoria Vance across the sky at nearly the speed of sound. Yet the brutal velocity utterly failed to outrun the escalating thunder in her chest, a tempest of dread and unacknowledged panic. Her meticulously tailored silk blouse, a second skin designed to project unyielding authority, now clung to her, clammy with a cold sweat that defied the cabin's perfectly calibrated air conditioning. The usually soothing hum of the climate control seemed to mock her with its icy indifference, a sterile counterpoint to the chaos spiraling within. Outside, the world was a blur of indifferent clouds, vast and featureless, an abyss of white. Inside, her meticulously constructed world was collapsing, brick by agonizing brick. The data on the sleek tablet pulsed an angry, insistent red. Q3 projections were not merely down. They had cratered, a catastrophic hemorrhage of capital. A major investor, one whose name alone commanded respect, was pulling out, the reverberations set to ripple through the financial markets like an earthquake. The Vance AgriCorp board, a cabal of impeccably dressed wolves, was demanding not just a decisive move, but a brutal, surgical strike against the remaining holdouts, the stubborn small-scale operations they deemed an affront to their inevitable agricultural monopoly. Their words echoed in Victoria's mind, a chorus of insatiable avarice. Her jaw ached with a dull, incessant throb, a physical manifestation of the tension she'd been clenching for days, perhaps weeks, without conscious thought. The bitter taste of stale, over-caffeinated coffee mixed with bile in her throat, a corrosive cocktail of stress and self-disgust. Her phone, a polished onyx slab, vibrated relentlessly on the custom-built console beside her, each buzz a tiny hammer blow against her skull, chipping away at the fragile edifice of her composure. She snatched it up, her voice, usually a weapon of surgical precision, now frayed at the edges, a thin wire threatening to snap under the immense pressure. "No, Michael, I told you, secure the damn land. I don't care if they're a centenarian family farm, a national heritage site, or the last bastion of agrarian purity. They are an obstacle. Offer them double, triple. Whatever it takes, just get the signature. We don't have time for sentimentality. Not for the sentimental, not for us." Her words, sharp as shards of glass, felt hollow even to her own ears. Her assistant, Michael, a man whose existence seemed predicated on appeasing her every whim, stammered through the crackling satellite connection, the delay adding a layer of infuriating impedance. "But Miss Vance, Mr. Baker has refused every offer, every negotiation. He's different. He talks about legacy, Miss Vance. He speaks of the soil having memory, of roots deeper than any corporate ledger." Victoria scoffed, a dry, humorless sound that scraped against the pristine silence of the cabin. "Memory," she spat, "doesn't pay dividends, Michael. It doesn't yield market share. It doesn't feed the endless maw of our investors." The ruthlessness of her own words, once a source of pride, now tasted like ash. "Then I'll talk to him myself. Land a chopper outside his quaint little farmhouse if you have to. I'm going in. I'll make him understand the inevitability of progress." The words were barely out before a wave of nauseating dread washed over her, chilling her to the bone. Her vision blurred, dark spots dancing behind her eyes like malevolent specters. The cabin, so familiar, so insulated, began to spin, the opulent furnishings becoming a distorted, claustrophobic prison. Her breath hitched, catching in a throat suddenly too tight, too constricted. Her perfectly manicured fingers flew to her chest, feeling the frantic, irregular thump of her heart beneath the silk, a wild bird trapped and desperate. It wasn't just stress, it was raw, unadulterated terror. Panic. A full-blown, suffocating panic attack miles above the earth, trapped not by external forces, but by the very success she had so relentlessly pursued. Her empire, built brick by painstaking brick, through sleepless nights and ruthless decisions, felt less like a monument to her ambition and more like a tomb, a gilded cage designed to entomb her soul. There are truths that only reveal themselves when everything we know falls apart. This was Victoria's truth, revealing itself not in quiet introspection or philosophical musings, but in the brutal, suffocating reality of her body betraying her, a visceral testament to a life lived too fast, too cold, too alone. Her last coherent thought before the world tilted and the darkness claimed her, before consciousness dissolved into a swirling vortex, was the name, Noah Baker, the man who refused to sell. The last defiant piece on her corporate chessboard, now perhaps the key to her undoing. The roar of the wind, now untamed and malevolent, became a physical entity, tearing at the luxury SUV as Victoria wrestled with the steering wheel. She had dismissed Michael's frantic pleas to send a local team, convinced that only her direct, CEO-level pressure, her personal presence, could break this stubborn farmer. Her private jet had dropped her at the nearest private airfield, a gleaming monument to her status, where a rental, a black behemoth of German engineering, waited, a sterile cocoon ready to ferry her to her next conquest. But the storm had come out of nowhere, a furious, vengeful hand slapping down on the landscape, turning the late afternoon into a premature, terrifying dusk. The heavens opened, unleashing a deluge that obliterated the distinction between sky and earth. The GPS flickered, then died, taking the fragile cell signal with it, severing her last tether to the world she commanded. "Damn it!" she screamed, her voice a raw, desperate shriek, lost in the shriek of the wind, swallowed by the drumming rain against the windshield. She gripped the wheel, her knuckles white, bloodless against the polished leather, her breath coming in ragged, shallow gasps. The rain was thick as soup, blurring the windshield wipers into useless, frantic arcs, rendering the world outside an impenetrable, watery wall. Victoria Vance, CEO, accustomed to perfect data, controlled environments, and predictable outcomes, found herself plunged into chaos. Unscripted, untamed, primal chaos, a force that bent her will, not the other way around. The sheer, terrifying vulnerability of it clawed at her, stripping away layers of carefully constructed control. A dark, indistinct shape loomed ahead, too fast, too close, a sudden, menacing apparition in the rain-lashed twilight. Not a tree, not a building, but a fence, ancient and weathered, its wood splintering into jagged, desperate spears against the onslaught of her vehicle. She stomped on the brake, the pedal pressing down with desperate force, but it was too late. The world became a deafening, tearing crunch of tortured metal, a spiderweb shattering of glass, a sickening lurch that threw her forward against the seatbelt with bone-jarring force, then backward into an abyss of darkness. The last sound she heard was the frantic, desperate beat of her own heart, not from panic now, but from the brutal physics of impact, a final, fading drum. Then silence. A profound, absolute silence that swallowed the storm, the searing pain, the frantic echoes of her empire, and the very memory of her life. She woke to the primal comfort of woodsmoke, a scent that clung to the air and the rough-hewn beams above her. Beneath it, something else, something profoundly earthy, like freshly turned soil after a spring rain, mingled with the faint, sweet aroma of baking bread. Her head throbbed, a dull, insistent drumbeat behind her eyes, each pulse a reminder of the violent transition she had just endured. Her body ached in places she hadn't known existed, a symphony of bruised muscles and protesting bones. She blinked once, twice, the room slowly, painstakingly coming into focus. It was rustic. Not rustic chic from a glossy magazine, a calculated aesthetic, but genuinely, unpretentiously rustic, honest and lived in. Rough-hewn wooden beams crisscrossed a low ceiling, darkened by generations of wood smoke. A small but vigorous fire crackled merrily in a stone hearth, casting flickering, dancing shadows on walls adorned with simple, framed photographs, faded sepia images of stern-faced men and women, their eyes holding secrets of hardship and resilience, fields stretching into the distance behind them, etched with the marks of their toil. She was lying on a bed with a patchwork quilt, heavy and surprisingly soft, smelling faintly of lavender and sunshine, a comfort utterly foreign to her sterile penthouse. Panic, a familiar companion from her descent in the jet, began its insidious crawl, colder and more insidious than before. Where was she? Who was with her? Where was her phone, her lifeline, her conduit to control? She tried to sit up, a sharp, searing pain shooting through her ribs, making her gasp, a sound that felt alien in the quiet room. A figure, a tall silhouette against the dim, wintry light filtering through a window, moved towards her. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic, trapped bird once more. This wasn't her world, this wasn't her plan, this wasn't anything she had accounted for. "Easy there," a deep, calm voice rumbled, devoid of any alarm, any recognition, any hint of the deference she was accustomed to. It was a man's voice, gravelly with age and perhaps the elements, but undeniably gentle. "You took quite a spill. Lucky the fence broke your fall, otherwise you'd have been in the creek. Your guardian angel was working overtime." Victoria squinted, trying to make out his face in the dancing firelight. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with lines etched around his eyes that spoke of sun and wind, of years spent under an open sky, not late-night board meetings under fluorescent lights. His hands, she noticed, were strong, calloused, the kind that worked with the land, that knew honest labor. He held a ceramic mug, steam curling gently from its rim, carrying a faint, earthy aroma. "Here," he offered, extending it towards her, his movements unhurried, deliberate. "It's just water. You're probably dehydrated. And you took quite a bump to the head, I reckon." She eyed him warily, suspicion her default setting. Where am I? What happened to my car?" Her voice was hoarse, unfamiliar, a croak that betrayed her usual command. "My farmhouse," he replied, his gaze steady, assessing but not intrusive, holding a quiet depth she found unnerving. "Old Baker's farm. Your car's totaled, I'm afraid. Hit my fence pretty hard. Good thing the old wood gave way, slowed you down. Made a real mess of the pasture, but nothing a bit of work won't fix." He sat on a sturdy wooden chair near the bed, his presence calming, yet utterly disarming. He didn't seem to recognize her, Victoria Vance, the formidable CEO of Vance AgriCorp. Or if he did, he certainly didn't care. It was a sensation Victoria hadn't experienced in years, to be just another person, stripped of her titles, her power, her meticulously crafted image. It was unsettling, profoundly so. "I need my phone," she demanded, trying to inject some authority into her voice, but it came out as a weak, desperate croak. "I need to call my team. They'll be frantic. There are deals, contracts, billions at stake." He chuckled softly, a low, rumbling sound that seemed to vibrate through the quiet room. "Ain't no signal out here, ma'am. Not since the storm took out the lines. Probably be a day or two, maybe 3, before they get it fixed. Nature reminds us who's really in charge sometimes." He stood, walking to a small, cast-iron stove in the corner, its surface gleaming faintly in the firelight. "Hungry. I've got some soup simmering. Made it fresh this morning." Soup, her stomach, A knot of nerves and forgotten meals rumbled in protest, a foreign sound. She usually subsisted on precisely portioned protein bars and cold, bland salads eaten between calls, her meals dictated by efficiency, not nourishment. I don't really eat soup, not rustic soup. He turned, a slight knowing smile playing on his lips, a flicker of amusement in his deep-set eyes. This ain't just soup, Victoria. This is soil, sun, and rain. All from my garden picked this morning. It'll put some life back into you, ground you a bit. Mend what the city tries to tear down. He ladled a thick, fragrant liquid into a rough ceramic bowl, the steam carrying an aroma of earthy vegetables, pungent herbs, thyme, rosemary, something wild and untamed, and something else, an intangible scent of warmth, of care, perhaps even of love. He brought it to her, along with a sturdy wooden spoon. Reluctantly, Victoria took the bowl. The ceramic was warm against her chilled, trembling fingers. She lifted the spoon, a faint, tantalizing scent teasing her nostrils. The first mouthful was a revelation. It was rich, hearty, bursting with flavor she hadn't tasted in years. Carrots, potatoes, celery, leafy greens, each vegetable distinct, yet harmoniously blended, a symphony of taste and texture. It was real food, nourishing and honest, utterly devoid of pretense or artificiality. It was life, distilled into a bowl. She ate slowly, savoring each spoonful, the warmth spreading through her, easing the ache in her bones, chasing away the pervasive chill that had settled deep within her soul. The man, Noah Baker, she assumed, watched her with quiet satisfaction, his gaze unwavering but not demanding. He didn't push, didn't pry, didn't demand explanations. He simply offered sustenance. And in that moment, for the first time in what felt like forever, Victoria felt truly, deeply fed. Not just her body, starved by neglect and ambition, but something inside her, a long-starved, forgotten part of her soul that had yearned for connection, for authenticity, for something real. The silence that followed was not empty, but filled with the profound implications of that simple meal, a seed planted in the fertile ground of her unexpected vulnerability. The next morning, the world outside was still quiet, too quiet. Victoria's internal clock, usually a relentless tyrant of schedules and deadlines, was bewildered, completely disoriented. No buzzing alarm, no frantic emails demanding immediate replies, no distant, pervasive hum of city traffic, no sirens wailing in the distance. Just the gentle, rhythmic crackle of the fire in the hearth, the distant, clarion crow of a rooster proclaiming the dawn, and the steady, rhythmic drip of melting snow from the eaves, marking the slow thaw. She tried her phone again, her fingers trembling slightly as she pressed the power button. Dead, absolutely lifeless. No flicker of light, no signal bars, no digital pulse. Panic, a familiar, unwelcome guest, began its insidious claw at her throat, tightening its grip. "This is insane," she muttered, pacing the small cabin, her stiff, protesting body still aching with every movement. Her perfectly tailored corporate attire, still clinging to her, felt like a costume for a play she no longer understood. "I'm completely cut off. My board, my investors, Michael, they'll be frantic. What if there's an emergency? What if a deal, a multi-billion-dollar acquisition falls through? The market will crash. My empire will crumble." Noah, who was stirring a pot of something that smelled like richly roasted coffee over the cast-iron stove, looked up, a wry, knowing smile on his face, a spark of amusement in his eyes. "Relax, Victoria," he said, his voice a soothing balm against her spiraling anxiety, a quiet counterpoint to her corporate clamor. "The world won't end just because you're offline for a day or two. Trust me, it's been going on for a long time before cell phones, before empires. The sun still rises, the crops still grow, and life, in its infinite wisdom, finds a way." He gestured towards the sturdy wooden door, already dressed in faded, sturdy jeans and a worn flannel shirt, clothes that spoke of honest labor and a life lived close to the earth. Power's out, which means no pump for the well, so we're drawing water by hand. And the animals still need feeding. You up for some fresh air? Or would you prefer to watch your world crumble from indoors? Victoria stared at him, aghast, her mind struggling to process the implications of his nonchalant invitation. You want me to feed animals? Her hands, accustomed to signing multi-million-dollar contracts with a flourish, to navigating intricate touchscreens with practiced ease, felt utterly useless, alien at the mere prospect. Dirt, manure, these were things other people handled, people paid to keep her pristine. Noah just raised an eyebrow, a silent challenge in his gaze, his smile deepening almost imperceptibly. Only if you want to eat, Victoria, and stay warm. Everything here is earned, not just acquired. There's no invisible hand to do the work for you. Reluctantly, driven by a primal need for warmth and sustenance she hadn't realized she still possessed, Victoria followed him out into the crisp, bracing morning air. The blizzard had passed, leaving behind a pristine, untouched blanket of white, sparkling under a pale, hesitant winter sun. The air was shockingly fresh, clean, cutting through the stale corporate scent that still clung stubbornly to her clothes, invigorating her lungs in a way the conditioned air of her jet never could. Noah handed her a heavy, dented bucket of feed, its metallic chill a jolt against her skin. "Chickens first," he instructed, his tone patient, leading the way to a small, utilitarian coop. Victoria approached with extreme caution, her eyes wide with a mixture of apprehension and reluctant fascination, as the chickens clucked and pecked aggressively around her feet. She recoiled slightly, a gasp escaping her lips, when one particularly bold hen brushed against her leg, its feathery warmth an unexpected sensation. Noah laughed, a genuine, unrestrained sound that echoed in the quiet morning, devoid of judgment. "They're just hungry, Victoria, they won't bite. They just want their breakfast same as you." He showed her how to scatter the feed, a simple, primal motion, how to collect the surprisingly warm, smooth eggs from the nesting boxes, each one a perfect, fragile orb in her palm. Later she helped him with the goats, their soft, whiskered muzzles nudging her hand, their intelligent, ancient eyes studying her with an unnerving curiosity. She found herself smiling, a real, unforced smile that reached her eyes, crinkling them at the corners as a baby goat, all gangly legs and boundless energy, nibbled gently at her sleeve, mistaking her cuff for a tasty treat. The physical labor was surprisingly demanding. Her muscles, accustomed only to the sterile confines of a high-end gym, where exertion was carefully calibrated and observed, protested with every lift, every bend, every unfamiliar motion. Her hands, usually pristine, manicured to corporate perfection, became smudged with dirt and feed, tiny splinters embedding themselves beneath her nails, a badge of unglamorous effort. Yet with each task, with each moment of physical engagement with the earth, a strange, quiet sense of satisfaction settled over her, a profound rightness. The constant, intrusive hum of anxiety in her brain, the relentless churning of corporate strategy and market forecasts, began to recede, replaced by the simple, immediate, undeniable demands of the present moment. The chill in the air no longer felt threatening but invigorating, cleansing. The silence, which had initially been so frightening in its emptiness, now felt peaceful, a profound balm to her overwrought mind. She found herself observing, truly seeing for the first time in years, the intricate, ephemeral patterns of frost on a windowpane, the way the sunlight caught the dust motes dancing in the barn's golden light, the steady, unhurried rhythm of Noah's movements as he worked, always connected to the land. This wasn't a detox she'd planned or a sabbatical she'd approved. It was one that was brutally forced upon her, a harsh, necessary reset button for a life on the brink, a soul adrift. And for the first time in a long time, Victoria felt truly present, anchored to the earth, to herself, to something real. As the pale winter sun began its slow, inevitable descent, painting the snow-covered fields in hues of muted orange and deep purple, a breathtaking tapestry of twilight, Victoria found herself working alongside Noah, mending a section of the broken fence, the same fence that had ultimately stopped her headlong rush, saving her life. She had scoffed at the idea initially, her knowledge of manual labor confined exclusively to ordering it, delegating it, observing it from a sterile distance. But Noah, with a quiet, unwavering patience that defied her every corporate instinct, had shown her how to select a strong, unyielding post from a pile of timber, how to drive it deep into the frozen, unyielding earth with a heavy mallet, the rhythmic thud a primal pulse against the encroaching silence. He taught her how to stretch the wire taut, securing it with practiced movements, ensuring its resilience against the elements, against the future. Her hands, once soft and untouched, were now sore and roughened, tiny splinters embedded stubbornly beneath her nails, a testament to her unaccustomed efforts. Yet as she pressed her palm into the rich, damp soil where the new post found its anchor, feeling the cool, living earth beneath her skin, something profound shifted within her. A profound sense of connection, of being rooted, of belonging, spread through her, radiating from her core. It was as if the earth itself was whispering a forgotten truth, an ancient wisdom her corporate life had systematically silenced. She felt grounded, truly present, in a way the polished, impersonal floors of her skyscraper office had never, could never allow. The quiet pride of solid work, of making something strong and secure with her own hands, settled deep in her bones, a warmth that transcended the biting chill of the evening. That evening, curled by the comforting crackle of the fire, the flames dancing hypnotically, a mug of Noah's fragrant herbal tea warming her hands, the conversation flowed easily, unburdened by corporate jargon, strategic maneuvers, or the relentless pursuit of profit. He spoke of the land not as property, but as a living entity, a repository of memory. He spoke of his family's legacy, a lineage stretching back generations, of his grandparents and great-grandparents who had tilled this very soil, their lives intertwined with its fate. They came here with nothing but hope and a few seeds, he mused, his gaze fixed on the dancing flames, his voice carrying the weight of history. This farm, it's been through droughts, floods, recessions, plagues. It's seen joys and sorrows, births and deaths. It's part of who we are, Victoria. It's in our blood, in our very being. Victoria, usually guarded, always calculating, found herself listening, truly listening, to a depth of wisdom she hadn't encountered in the cutthroat world of quarterly reports and hostile takeovers. The words resonated with a quiet, undeniable power she had never known. "But it's just land, isn't it?" she ventured, the corporate programming still strong, a deep-seated reflex. An asset, something to be bought, sold, optimized for profit to yield maximum return. She thought of the acquisition papers for his farm, lying on her desk back in the city, cold and clinical, a sterile death warrant for his heritage. Noah turned his head slowly. His eyes, the color of warm, fertile earth, met hers with an unnerving directness. "To you, maybe. To them, maybe," he replied, his voice gentle but firm, carrying the indisputable weight of generations. "To my family, it's not an asset, Victoria. It's a family member. It feeds us, shelters us, teaches us patience and humility, the cyclical truths of life and death. It remembers the hands that tilled it, the sweat that watered it, the tears that fell upon its furrows. You sell a family member, Victoria, you lose a part of yourself. You sever a connection that cannot be bought back." He paused, allowing the gravity of his words to settle between them. Money comes and goes, an ephemeral illusion. But the land, cared for, respected, tended with love, it endures. It's the closest thing to immortality we have. It's the ultimate legacy, beyond the reach of any market fluctuation or corporate predator. His words struck her with the force of a physical blow, a truth so simple yet so profound it shook her to her very core. She thought of her own empire, built on numbers and acquisitions, on crushing the small to feed the large, on a relentless, insatiable hunger for more. What had she built, really? A gilded cage, magnificent in its scale but ultimately devoid of memory, devoid of soul, a monument to emptiness. The silence that followed was not empty, but filled with the profound, unsettling implications of his philosophy, a stark challenge to her entire worldview. She saw the land now, not as a target on a balance sheet, a mere resource to be exploited, but as a living entity, imbued with history and spirit, a silent witness to generations of unwavering dedication. And as she looked at Noah, his face illuminated by the firelight, lines of wisdom etched deep, she saw a man profoundly at peace, a man whose wealth was not measured in dollars or market share, but in the richness of his connection to the earth beneath his feet, to the unbroken chain of his heritage. For the first time, with a painful clarity, she understood why he wouldn't sell. And a part of her, a deep, forgotten, long-starved part of her soul, yearned with an almost unbearable intensity for that same rootedness, that same quiet, enduring peace. The realization hung in the air, a silent, powerful promise of a future she hadn't dared to dream. The crisp morning light, piercing through the cabin window, brought with it a different kind of clarity. The storm had truly broken, leaving behind a world sparkling under a brilliant, cold sun, reborn. The snow lay pristine, undisturbed save for the delicate tracks of deer and rabbits, a testament to the wild, untamed beauty she had glimpsed. Victoria felt a flicker of something akin to peace, a strange, quiet satisfaction that had settled into her bones over the past few days, a warmth she hadn't known she'd lost. She was helping Noah gather firewood, her muscles still protesting with a dull ache, but her spirit feeling lighter, freer than it had in years. The air tasted clean, like melting ice and pine, a tonic for her city-weary lungs. Then a distant thrum, faint at first, a low vibration in the ground, a seismic tremor more than a discernible sound. Victoria paused, her head tilting, her senses sharpened by days of living closer to the earth. Noah, who had been splitting logs with practiced, rhythmic ease, stopped mid-swing, his axe held aloft, his face tightening almost imperceptibly, his eyes narrowing slightly towards the horizon. The thrum grew, rapidly, relentlessly, evolving into a rhythmic, deafening asterisk wump 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 asterisk. It was a familiar sound, one that usually signaled her arrival in some remote, underdeveloped location, a symbol of her unquestioned power, her global reach, her ability to impose her will. Helicopters, specifically her asterisk helicopters. Noah's face, which had been relaxed, a canvas of quiet contentment, tightened almost imperceptibly, a shadow passing over his features. Victoria felt a cold, hard knot form in her stomach, a sickening certainty. Her old life, the gilded cage, the relentless, insatiable empire was coming for her. The peace, so fragile, so recently discovered, so deeply cherished, was about to be shattered, torn apart by the blades of her own making. Soon, two sleek black helicopters broke through the tree line, cutting through the pristine blue sky with aggressive precision, their powerful blades churning the air into a chaotic maelstrom, kicking up a blizzard of snow and debris. They descended with an almost violent grace, landing in the field adjacent to Noah's barn, the roaring engines drowning out the gentle sounds of the farm. The distant bleating of goats, the crow of a rooster, the quiet rustle of the wind. The noise was deafening, a physical assault on the senses, destroying the quiet intimacy they had cultivated, shattering the fragile bubble of their shared existence. It felt violent, an invasion, a desecration. Doors slid open with a controlled hiss, and a stream of figures in dark suits and discreet earpieces spilled out. Her security detail, led by a stern-faced man named Davis, his expression a mask of professional efficiency. They moved with military precision, scanning the perimeter, their eyes, cold and assessing, falling on Victoria and Noah, standing by the fence, two incongruous figures against the backdrop of their opulent intrusion. Davis strode towards her, his face a mixture of palpable relief and barely concealed irritation. "Miss Vance, thank God. We've been out of our minds. We lost all contact and your transponder went dead. We feared the worst. Are you all right? Are you injured?" Victoria nodded mechanically, her gaze fixed on Noah, a silent apology in her eyes. He stood beside her, still holding his axe, a tool of honest labor, his face a mixture of profound resignation and quiet sadness. His shoulders slumped almost imperceptibly. The magic of the past few days felt like a fragile bubble, now burst, irrevocably shattered. "I'm fine, Davis. Just fine," she replied, the words feeling hollow, like a lie, an inadequate performance for a role she was beginning to despise. "We need to get you out of here immediately," Davis insisted, his voice clipped, urgent, cutting through the rotor wash. "The storm was unprecedented. Your car is, well, it's a total loss. We have a medical team standing by at the airfield, ready to conduct a full assessment. We've arranged for immediate transport back to the city." He didn't even glance at Noah, who was invisible to him, a mere fixture of the landscape, an inconvenient backdrop to the recovery of his principal. Victoria felt a profound, crushing weight settle on her shoulders, heavier than any corporate responsibility she had ever borne. The choice was clear, stark, painfully bifurcated. Her old life, demanding, powerful, efficient, ruthless, was here to reclaim her, to pull her back into its relentless current. The simplicity, the connection, the gentle rhythm of Noah's world felt miles away, already fading, a beautiful dream dissolving with the harsh light of reality. She wanted to argue, to stay, to disappear into the quiet anonymity of the farm, to cling to the nascent peace she had found. But the brutal truth was, she was Victoria Vance, CEO. They were here for her asterisk, the woman who commanded empires, and she couldn't simply walk away, not yet. The financial chains of her own making, the expectations of billions, still held her captive. She turned to Noah, her eyes conveying an apology, a silent farewell, a promise she wasn't sure she could keep. He simply nodded, a faint, sad smile touching his lips, his understanding a silent reproach. He didn't try to stop her. He didn't need to. The choice was hers, and it was excruciating, a tearing of her very soul. "Thank you, Noah," she said, her voice barely audible above the deafening roar of the helicopter blades, a whisper swallowed by the storm of her return. "For everything, for showing me another way." He merely nodded again, his gaze deep, understanding, tinged with a sorrow that mirrored her own. "Be safe, Victoria. Find your own truth." As she was escorted towards the waiting helicopter, the sheer force of the downwash whipping her hair and clothes, making her stumble slightly, she cast one last, desperate look back. Noah stood by the fence, a solitary, unwavering figure against the vast, snow-covered field, a silent sentinel to a brief, beautiful interlude, a stark contrast to the encroaching modernity. The noise of the rotors escalated to an unbearable shriek as she boarded, the door hissing shut behind her, sealing her inside the sterile, controlled environment of her former life. Her heart felt heavy, a dull, persistent ache blooming in her chest, an internal wound that no medical team could assess. Leaving Noah and his quiet, authentic world felt less like a rescue and more like an exile, a cruel banishment from the only place she had felt truly alive. The transition back to her empire was not just a return, it was a profound, agonizing amputation. The transition was jarring, a brutal snap back to reality, a violent re-entry into the sterile orbit she had temporarily escaped. One moment, she was watching Noah shrink into the distance from the helicopter's window, his lone figure a fading beacon of authenticity against the vast, indifferent landscape. The next, she was being whisked into a waiting jet, the gleaming epitome of her corporate power, surrounded by the clamor of her team, their relieved chatter and assault on her ears, their faces a mixture of professional concern and thinly veiled exasperation. They fawned over her, fussed, and immediately, without a hint of irony, handed her a fully charged satellite phone, a symbol of the world she had re-entered. The cold, polished glass of the Gulfstream's interior felt less like an achievement and more like a sarcophagus compared to Noah's warm, rustic cabin. The air was sterile, conditioned, filtered, utterly lacking the earthy scent of woodsmoke, damp soil, or the crisp, clean scent of pine. The silence, which had been a profound comfort at Noah's farm, now felt hollow, an unnatural void in the roaring machinery of her life, filled only with the deafening hum of the jet engines and the unspoken demands of her empire. It was the silence of a tomb, echoing with the relentless, insatiable expectations of billions. Back in her penthouse apartment, a monument to minimalist luxury and breathtaking views, the panoramic sprawl of the city, usually a source of immense pride and a testament to her conquest, now felt like a distant, impersonal painting, cold and detached. The sleek lines of her minimalist furniture, the exorbitant abstract art, the automated systems that hummed quietly in the background, anticipating her every need. It all seemed cold, unwelcoming, alien, a carefully curated prison. She showered, letting the steaming water cascade over her, washing away not just the farm's dirt and the lingering scent of woodsmoke, but also, she desperately hoped, the unsettling emotional residue of her time with Noah. But the feeling persisted, a dull, insistent ache beneath her ribs, a phantom limb yearning for a connection that no amount of luxury could provide. The antiseptic scent of her expensive soap could not erase the memory of fresh soil. The next morning, back in the glass and steel fortress of Vance AgriCorp, the air hummed with barely contained tension. Her return, after a 3-day unexplained absence that had sent tremors of speculation and anxiety through the corporate ranks, was met with a mixture of relief and fear. Michael, her assistant, tiptoed around her, his usual obsequiousness amplified by her mysterious disappearance, presenting a stack of urgent emails and missed calls, a digital avalanche. The familiar hum of the air conditioning, the low murmur of voices from the trading floor, the incessant tap-tap-tap of keyboards. It all grated on her nerves, an unbearable cacophony. The silence, the comfortable, profound silence she'd found at Noah's farm, was now a painful absence, a void that screamed louder than any noise. Every sound here felt artificial, synthetic, a manufactured reality utterly devoid of the authentic pulse of life. She sat at her expansive glass desk, the city sprawling beneath her like a complex, indifferent circuit board, a tapestry of ambition and greed. Her gaze, drawn by an invisible thread, fell upon a stack of documents, thick and imposing, emblazoned with the Vance AgriCorp logo, a stylized combine harvester devouring a field. The acquisition papers, specifically the final offer for Noah Baker's farm. She picked them up, her fingers tracing the crisp, legalistic typeface, the cold, impersonal language of conquest. Noah Baker, P.O. Box 71, Willow Creek, North Carolina. The address, once a mere data point, a target on a map, now conjured vivid images. The man himself, his weathered hands, the comforting smell of his soup, the quiet, unwavering wisdom in his eyes as he spoke of the land as a family member. The detailed financial projections, the synergy reports, the risk mitigation analyses. They all laid out a perfectly rational, perfectly ruthless plan to absorb his family's land, to turn his heritage, his very identity, into another sterile line item on Vance AgriCorp's colossal balance sheet. The numbers were irrefutable, designed to crush any emotional resistance, to silence any dissenting voice. She saw the projected profits, the expanded distribution channels, the increased market share, the unassailable path to further dominance. It was all there, the logical, undeniable, and utterly soulless path to unbridled corporate power. But as she stared at the cold, hard facts, the undeniable figures, all she could see was Noah's quiet resolve, the unwavering dignity in his refusal. She remembered the warmth of the fire, the taste of soil on her tongue, the feel of a baby goat's soft fur against her hand. She remembered his words, burning into her consciousness like an ancient truth. Land isn't an asset, it's a family member. You sell a family member, you lose a part of yourself. The corporate jargon, once her mother tongue, the language of her power, now felt like a foreign, predatory language, a lexicon of destruction. The silence of her office, usually a canvas for her strategic thoughts, now screamed with the absence of everything real, everything genuine, everything that held intrinsic value. The papers felt heavy in her hands, not with their immense financial weight, but with a crushing moral burden she could no longer ignore, no longer justify. This wasn't just a deal. It was an amputation, a severance of something vital and alive, a deliberate act of cultural and spiritual destruction. And she was the surgeon, scalpel in hand, poised to make the final, irreversible cut. The weight of that realization threatened to break her. The boardroom was a gleaming mausoleum of ambition, a temple to unfettered capitalism. Polished mahogany, brushed steel, and a colossal, flickering screen displaying the latest quarterly earnings, all reflected the cold, calculating faces of the Vance AgriCorp board of directors. 8 men and 1 woman, all impeccably dressed, their expressions ranging from smug satisfaction to barely concealed impatience, a collective hunger for more. Victoria sat at the head of the impossibly long table, the weight of their collective expectations pressing down on her, a physical burden. Her 3-day disappearance, the mystery of her absence, had only sharpened their predatory edge. They wanted action, blood, a decisive move to reclaim their perceived loss of control. Harold Thorne, the oldest and most traditional of the board members, a man whose every utterance was steeped in corporate dogma, cleared his throat with an irritating, self-important rasp. "Victoria, now that you've returned from your unexpected sabbatical," he began, a thinly veiled jab in his tone, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. "I trust you're ready to proceed with the acquisition of the Baker property. The numbers are clear. It's the final, crucial piece of the puzzle for the regional distribution hub. We've wasted enough time on this rural holdout, this relic of a bygone era." Arthur Hayes, a younger, more aggressive director, his ambition thinly disguised beneath a veneer of corporate polish, leaned forward, a condescending smirk playing on his lips. "Indeed. Frankly, Miss Vance, I'm surprised it's taken this long. What could one dirty peasant possibly have that's worth delaying a multi-million, potentially multi-billion-dollar expansion? He's an anachronism, an obstruction to progress, a sentimental fool who doesn't understand the realities of the market." The words "dirty peasant" hung in the air, thick with disdain, with a casual cruelty that made Victoria's stomach churn, a bitter taste rising in her throat. Her mind flashed back to Noah's calloused hands, the deep lines etched by sun and wind, the way he spoke of the land with profound reverence, the honest sweat on his brow as he mended the fence. Dirty? No, real, grounded, connected. Unlike the sterile, detached faces around this table, faces that had forgotten the taste of honest dirt, the feel of genuine labor. "He's not a peasant, Arthur," Victoria said, her voice surprisingly calm, though a storm of righteous fury brewed beneath her composed exterior, a storm ready to break. "He's a farmer, and his land isn't just property, it's his family's legacy, a living, breathing testament to generations of stewardship." A ripple of amused murmurs went through the room, quickly suppressed but not entirely hidden. "Legacy doesn't pay shareholders, Victoria," Thorne scoffed, dismissing her words with a wave of his manicured hand. "Sentimentality is a luxury we cannot afford in this market. The man's clinging to a bygone era, an outdated model. We're doing him a favor, really. Rescuing him from inevitable obsolescence, from the crushing weight of progress he cannot comprehend." Victoria felt a cold, clear rage ignite within her, a cleansing fire that burned away years of corporate conditioning. She saw herself, only days ago, uttering similar sentiments, believing them, justifying them with the relentless logic of the market. But Noah's soup, the touch of the soil, the quiet dignity of his life, his unwavering connection to something beyond profit, it had cracked open something dormant inside her, something profoundly human. She saw the board not as shrewd businessmen, but as scavengers, picking at the bones of a disappearing way of life, justifying their insatiable greed with empty rhetoric of progress and efficiency, words twisted into instruments of destruction. "Rescue," she repeated, her voice rising, gaining power, infusing each syllable with a damning indictment. "Is that what you call it? Forcing a family off land they've worked for generations, destroying their heritage, their very identity, for a marginal increase in profit margin? That's not rescue, Arthur. That's predatory. That's theft. That's a moral bankruptcy that will hollow out this company from the inside." Silence descended, thick and stunned, crushing the last vestiges of smug self-satisfaction. The arrogant expressions vanished, replaced by open-mouthed shock, then dawning fury. Thorne's eyes narrowed, a dangerous glint within them, an unspoken threat. "Victoria, watch your tone. You're speaking to the board. This isn't a charity. This is business. This is how empires are built." "And what kind of business is it, Harold?" she challenged, standing up slowly, deliberately, her gaze sweeping across their shocked, infuriated faces. Her custom suit, once a symbol of her power, her armor, now felt like a costume, a uniform for a role she no longer wanted to play, a masquerade she could no longer endure. A business that devours everything real, everything genuine, everything that holds value beyond a quarterly report. A business that destroys communities and calls it synergy. A business that labels hard-working individuals as obstacles and peasants because they refuse to be absorbed into your corporate maw. Is this the legacy we truly want to build? She paused, taking a deep, fortifying breath, her lungs filling with the charged, electric air of defiance. The room felt suddenly alive, crackling with unspoken tension. "I've spent the last 3 days cut off from this artificial world, from this echo chamber of greed, and I've seen what we've become, what I've become, and I don't like it. I despise it." Her eyes met Thorne's, cold and unwavering, her resolve absolute. "This deal, the acquisition of Noah Baker's farm, it's off, completely, permanently. And any other predatory acquisition targeting small, independent farms is also terminated, effective immediately." A collective gasp, Then an uproar of protest erupted. "You can't do that, Victoria." Hayes exploded, leaping to his feet, his face flushed with rage. "You have a fiduciary duty to the shareholders. This is corporate malpractice. You'll be sued." "My duty," Victoria declared, her voice now a steel blade cutting through the clamor, silencing them with its sheer force of will, "is to ethical conduct. My duty is to a vision of agriculture that doesn't sacrifice humanity for profit, that doesn't devour the very earth it claims to cultivate. My duty is to a legacy worth building, one that nurtures life, not one that destroys it." She looked at each of them, her resolve absolute, unyielding. "This company, my asterisk company, will no longer pursue predatory acquisitions of small, independent farms. We will rethink our strategy. We will focus on sustainable partnerships, on supporting local growers, on building resilient communities, not crushing them. This is not a negotiation. It is a declaration." Thorne, his face purple with apoplectic rage, pounded a fist on the table, rattling the crystal water glasses. "You're insane, Victoria. You're throwing away years of work, billions in potential revenue just for some farmer's legacy, for some sentimental delusion. We'll have you removed. You'll be ruined. Your reputation will be in tatters. You'll lose everything." Victoria felt a liberating lightness spread through her, a clarity she hadn't known was possible, a profound sense of self-acceptance. This was it, the moment of symmetrical catharsis. She looked at them, not with fear but with an almost paternal pity. "Perhaps, but I would rather be ruined with my integrity intact than reign over an empire built on the destruction of others, built on a foundation of moral rot." She straightened her shoulders, her gaze unflinching, meeting each of their furious glares. "Consider this my resignation, effective immediately. And as the largest individual shareholder, I will be working to dismantle this destructive model from the outside. You want to ruin me? Try me. You have no idea what I'm capable of when I'm fighting for something I actually believe in, something that feeds the soul rather than simply filling coffers." She grabbed her briefcase, its contents feeling suddenly trivial, meaningless, and walked out, leaving behind a stunned, silent boardroom, the echoes of her defiance hanging heavy in the air, a monument to a shattered paradigm. The glass doors hissed shut behind her, sealing her fate but opening a whole new world, a canvas for a different kind of empire. The drive back was different, radically, irrevocably different. Not in a sleek, anonymous German SUV, but in her personal car, a classic, well-maintained Ford Bronco she hadn't driven in years, a relic from a simpler time she'd long forgotten. The windows were down, the cool spring air whipping through her hair, carrying the scent of blooming wild dogwood and damp earth, a symphony of natural aromas. She was no longer encased in a tailored suit, a uniform for corporate warfare, but in worn jeans, a soft cotton shirt and sturdy boots she'd pulled from the back of her closet, clothes that felt like a second skin, honest and comfortable. The rigid posture, the clenched jaw, the constant hum of anxiety that had defined her existence. They were all gone, replaced by a sense of profound liberation, of being finally, truly herself, stripped bare of pretense and expectation. Her phone, now just a communication device, a tool, sat silently in the cup holder, no longer a tether to a life she had chosen to shed, a master she had willingly deposed. She drove past familiar corporate billboards, past sprawling big-box stores, the monuments to a consumerist culture she had once championed. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the landscape began to change. The concrete gave way to rolling hills, the neon signs replaced by weathered barns and budding trees, the nascent green of spring emerging from winter's slumber. The air grew fresher, cleaner, carrying the palpable promise of the coming harvest, of life renewed. Doubt, a fleeting shadow, tried to creep in what have you done? You walked away from everything, from power, from billions, from the very top. But it was quickly overshadowed by a surging wave of exhilarating hope, a feeling of absolute rightness that resonated deep in her soul, a silent symphony of affirmation. She wasn't running away. She was running towards something, towards a future built on authenticity, on connection, on purpose. The old gravel road, once a terrifying blur in the storm, now felt like a welcoming, familiar path. She slowed the Bronco as she approached Noah's farm, her heart thumping a nervous rhythm against her ribs, a mix of anticipation and trepidation. The repaired fence, the one she'd helped mend with her own hands, stood straight and strong, a testament to resilience, to community, to a shared purpose. The farmhouse, with its smoke curling gently from the chimney, a soft, welcoming plume against the deepening sky, looked warm and inviting, a beacon of home. She parked the Bronco by the barn, the engine purring to a stop, the sudden silence a profound hush. Silence descended, broken only by the chirping of birds and the distant bleating of goats, the natural rhythms of life. She took a deep breath, the scent of fresh-cut hay and rich soil filling her lungs, a familiar, comforting aroma. There he was. Noah stood in the middle of a newly tilled field, his back to her, a single, solitary figure against the backdrop of the emerging green shoots, the promise of spring. He was working as always, his broad shoulders moving with a practiced, timeless rhythm as he scattered seeds by hand. His movements a timeless dance with the earth, an ancient ritual. The setting sun cast a golden glow around him, outlining his strong profile, a silhouette of quiet strength. Victoria stepped out of the Bronco, her boots sinking slightly into the soft, yielding earth. She walked slowly towards him, her heart in her throat, each beat a drum of momentous change. Every step felt momentous, a step away from her past, a step towards an unknown, yet profoundly right future. As she approached, a slight breeze rustled the young crops, carrying her presence to him, a silent whisper across the field. Noah paused, his hand still poised over the earth, a single seed held captive. He straightened, slowly turning, his movements unhurried, deliberate. His eyes, warm and surprised, met hers, holding a question, a silent recognition. He didn't say anything. There was no need for explanations, no grand declarations, no corporate pronouncements. Her presence, her simple, unadorned presence, spoke volumes, a language beyond words. He saw the genes, not the suit. He saw the quiet determination in her eyes, not the corporate veneer. A slow, gentle smile spread across his face, a smile that reached his eyes, crinkling them at the corners, illuminating his entire being. It was a smile of recognition, of understanding, of acceptance. And in that smile, in the warmth of his gaze, Victoria knew with an absolute, undeniable certainty that she was home. The vast, silent field held a promise, a future rooted in something far more profound than any empire she had ever built. The field, stretching endlessly towards the horizon, glowed in the soft, ephemeral embrace of the dying sun, a tapestry of gold and deepening violet. The only sounds were the rustle of the budding crops, a whisper of life, the distant bleat of a lamb, and the rhythmic, steady beating of two hearts, finally, profoundly in sync. Victoria stopped a few feet from Noah, her breath catching in her throat, a profound sense of awe washing over her. Words, the sharp, precise currency of her past life, felt utterly inadequate, clumsy, incapable of expressing the seismic shift within her soul. What could she possibly say? I gave up everything. I chose this. I chose you. The profundity of her journey, the radical, life-altering shift in her very soul, couldn't be articulated in a mere sentence. It was a truth that resonated deeper than language. Noah stepped closer, his gaze never leaving hers, a silent question in his eyes, but one filled with immense tenderness. He didn't ask asterisk why she was here, or what she had done, or asterisk how she had arrived. He simply saw her asterisk, the woman beneath the shattered corporate armor, stripped bare of artifice and pretense, authentic and vulnerable. His hands, calloused and strong, imbued with the wisdom of the earth, reached out slowly, deliberately, gently cupping her face, his thumbs tracing the faint lines of worry that had begun to soften around her eyes, erasing the last vestiges of her corporate past. The touch was electric, a jolt that went straight to her core, igniting a warmth that spread through every inch of her being, a warmth she hadn't realized she had been starving for. It was a touch that spoke of earth, of honesty, of a profound, unspoken tenderness that transcended any boardroom declaration. Victoria leaned into his touch, her eyes fluttering closed for a moment, savoring the feeling of being truly seen, truly felt, truly accepted, for the first time in what felt like forever. She opened her eyes, meeting his steady, unwavering gaze. All the answers she sought, all the peace she craved, all the belonging she yearned for were there, reflected in his deep, warm eyes. Peace, acceptance, a deep, unwavering connection that promised an unbreakable bond. His head lowered slowly, deliberately, a silent invitation. She felt his breath on her lips, warm and sweet, smelling faintly of the earth and fresh air, of hay and sunshine, of genuine life. Then his lips met hers. It wasn't a fierce kiss, or a demanding one, or a kiss born of desperation. It was soft, tentative at first, then deepening slowly, gently, a quiet joining of two worlds, two souls, two destinies. It tasted of redemption, of a future unwritten, of a profound and simple truth that echoed through the vast, silent field. In that kiss, all the noise of her past, the frantic chase for power, the crushing weight of expectation, the sterile demands of her empire, faded into an indistinct hum, a distant, forgotten memory. There was only this moment, this man, this land, and the overwhelming, undeniable truth of their connection. A tear, warm and unexpected, a symbol of release, traced a path down Victoria's cheek. It was a tear of overwhelming relief, of profound happiness, of a joy so pure it brought her to her knees, if she hadn't been held so firmly in his arms. She was home, not in a penthouse suite, not on a private jet, but here, in this field, in the arms of a farmer, surrounded by the promise of the earth, under the boundless sky. And it was the most beautiful, most real, most authentic home she had ever known. No words were needed. The kiss spoke a language far more ancient and powerful than any boardroom decree. It was a promise, a beginning, a silent, profound declaration of love and belonging, a testament to a destiny rewritten. Life on the farm with Noah unfolded with a rhythm Victoria had once considered impossible, now utterly indispensable. Her days, once a frantic blur of back-to-back meetings, global travel, and relentless corporate conquest, settled into the steady, predictable pulse of the seasons. Mornings began not with the insistent ping of an email or the blaring of an alarm, but with the clarion crow of a rooster, a natural alarm clock, and the earthy, comforting scent of Noah's freshly brewed coffee, a stark contrast to the bitter aroma of stale corporate brew. She learned to plant seeds, her once manicured hands now intimately familiar with the rich, dark soil, feeling the vibrant promise of life within each tiny kernel, a profound connection to the cycle of growth. She helped Noah with the milking, her laughter echoing freely in the barn as a mischievous goat, with intelligent, playful eyes, tried to nibble her hair, a moment of unadulterated joy. She discovered the simple, profound joy of harvesting fresh vegetables. Their vibrant colors and earthy scents a stark contrast to the pre-packaged, flavorless produce she once consumed without thought, oblivious to its origins. Each small act of cultivation, Each connection to the earth healed a piece of her fractured soul. But Victoria Vance, the formidable CEO, didn't simply vanish. Her formidable intellect, her strategic mind, once honed for corporate conquest and ruthless expansion, found a new, noble purpose. She realized that the small farmers in their valley, like Noah, possessed an incredible, innate knowledge of the land, an ancient wisdom passed down through generations. Yet they often struggled with market access, sustainable pricing, and navigating the complex, often predatory landscape dominated by agri-giants like the company she had abandoned. They had the heart, but lacked the weapon of strategy. She initiated a plan, born of long, contemplative fireside conversations with Noah, whose wisdom anchored her idealism. She started by organizing a local farmers' co-op, leveraging her understanding of supply chains, consumer demand, and market dynamics to create a direct-to-consumer model that bypassed the exploitative middlemen who siphoned off their hard-earned profits. She developed an ethical sourcing and branding strategy, meticulously crafting a compelling narrative around the unparalleled quality, unwavering sustainability, and profound human connection inherent in their organically grown produce. She helped them establish online platforms, negotiate fair and equitable contracts with local restaurants and grocery stores, and secure crucial microloans for essential equipment, democratizing access to capital. It wasn't about crushing the competition. It was about building a resilient, equitable, and sustainable system that empowered, rather than exploited, the very backbone of their community. There were challenges, of course, the echoes of her past life manifesting in new forms. Skepticism from some of the more traditional farmers, bureaucratic hurdles that tested her patience, and moments when her old corporate impatience flared, threatening to overwhelm her newfound calm. But Noah was always there, a steadying presence, his deep, earth-rooted wisdom reminding her of the values that truly mattered: patience, community, the long view, the cyclical nature of life. He taught her that true growth wasn't always fast or flashy, or measured in quarterly reports, but deep and sustainable, like the enduring roots of an ancient oak, weathering storms to stand stronger. He taught her that the real strength of an empire lay not in its scale, but in its integrity. Victoria found herself thriving in this new environment, her spirit flourishing like the crops around her. She helped the co-op secure a major contract with a regional organic food distributor, a move that brought unprecedented stability, fair pricing, and increased income to dozens of local farms. This wasn't merely a business deal. It was a lifeline, a testament to what collective action and ethical strategy could achieve. She even found herself in boardrooms again, but this time, her power was wielded differently. She sat at tables not to dictate terms, but to advocate passionately for the rights of small farmers, negotiating fair terms, and using her expertise to uplift, to empower, not to exploit. She was still a CEO of sorts, yes, but her empire now was one of shared prosperity, of genuine connection to the land and its people, a network of ethical agriculture woven into the very fabric of the valley. A montage of their new life could paint the picture. Victoria, laughing freely, covered in flour as she bakes artisanal bread with Noah in their farmhouse kitchen, the scent of yeast and warmth filling the air. Her intently studying soil samples, her once detached intellect now genuinely fascinated by agronomy, understanding the intricate dance of nutrients and microbes. Her leading a meeting of proud, empowered farmers, their faces lit with hope and shared purpose. Her and Noah, hand in hand, walking through fields of golden wheat, the setting sun painting their silhouettes against the vast, open sky, two souls perfectly attuned to the land and to each other. She was no longer just Victoria Vance, the titan of industry, the ruthless corporate predator. She was Victoria Vance, the farmer's partner, the community builder, the woman who had found her true calling not in chasing abstract numbers, but in cultivating life, in fostering growth, in nurturing the very soul of the earth and its people. Her purpose was clear, her heart was full, and her future, entwined with Noah's, was rooted deep in the fertile ground of their shared dreams. The chill of the corporate air conditioning, the sterile gleam of glass and steel, the relentless thrum of ambition, the insidious whisper of greed, these were distant echoes now, ghosts of a past life that no longer held dominion over Victoria. She sat on the weathered porch swing of Noah's farmhouse, the warmth of the afternoon sun on her face, a gentle breeze carrying the sweet scent of blooming apple trees and damp earth. A contented sigh escaped her lips, a sound of profound peace. Noah was in the fields, the distant, rhythmic hum of a tractor a familiar lullaby, a comforting soundtrack to their shared existence. A fresh bowl of soup, made from the first vibrant spring vegetables, steamed beside her, its aroma mingling with the sweet air. It was simple, unadorned, and tasted not just of fresh produce, but of true abundance, of gratitude, of a life truly lived. She remembered the panic attacks, the gnawing emptiness that had hollowed her out, the constant, frantic feeling of chasing an ever-receding horizon, a phantom finish line. Success in her former life was a cold, hard number on a balance sheet, a percentage of market share, a higher rung on the corporate ladder, a deeper accumulation of material wealth. It was a relentless, isolating climb that had left her utterly depleted, wealthy in assets but utterly bankrupt in spirit, a queen in a gilded cage. Now, success was waking up to the sound of birdsong, feeling the rich, dark earth beneath her bare feet, sharing a meal made with love from the land she helped tend, the quiet joy of collaborative effort. It was the unrestrained laughter of the farmers at the co-op meetings, their faces illuminated with genuine hope and shared purpose. It was the quiet pride of seeing crops flourish, knowing she had played a part in nurturing life, in fostering growth, not just extracting profit. It was the unwavering warmth of Noah's hand in hers, the shared dreams woven into the rich, vibrant fabric of their days, a silent symphony of connection. The empire she had built, the one that had almost consumed her, now seemed like a hollow shell, magnificent in its scale but utterly devoid of substance. Its power was an illusion, its wealth a burden, its ambition a poison. The true fortune, she realized with crystal clarity, lay not in accumulation but in connection, not in domination but in cooperation, not in control but in the profound, liberating act of letting go. She had traded skyscrapers for boundless fields, private jets for muddy boots, and a life of ceaseless, isolating striving for a life of meaningful presence, for authentic connection. And in doing so, she had found herself, resurrected from the corporate husk she had become. Her heart, once a frantic, panicked drum, now beat with a steady, peaceful rhythm, a quiet song of contentment. Her mind, once a tempest of calculations and ruthless strategies, now found clarity in the simple, profound truths of nature, in the wisdom of the earth. Success isn't a number in a bank account, she realized, spooning a mouthful of warm, flavorful soup, each taste a reminder of where she had been and where she truly belonged. It's the taste of fresh earth on a cool morning. It's the quiet satisfaction of honest work, of hands calloused by creation, not by acquisition. It's the unwavering love in a partner's eyes, a reflection of shared purpose. It's waking up happy, content, and deeply connected to the living world around you. It's choosing soup over empire, and finding that the soup feeds your soul in a way the empire never could. It's living a life that feels authentic, where every breath is a conscious choice, every moment imbued with purpose, woven into the intricate tapestry of a meaningful existence. This was her lesson, learned not in a prestigious business school, but in the heart of a storm, in the quiet wisdom of a farmer, and in the nourishing, unwavering embrace of the land. And so, their destiny was forged, a new legacy built from the ashes of the old. Their story now belongs to time, but its power only grows if shared, if its lessons are heard. True wealth is not found in what you accumulate, but in what you cultivate: peace, love, and genuine connection. But as one woman breaks the system, finding her truth in the soil, another is trapped by it, blinded by the gleam of false gold. What empire must fall for humanity to truly flourish? What will you choose when your world collapses? If this journey marked your soul, leave a like and subscribe. For the best stories are those that refuse to die in silence, their whispers destined to reshape the world.